Alright, part two. I've decided to include background music. Never mind, I can't do background music. I just cannot concentrate on two things at once for some fucking reason. Like two active things. My brain wants to focus on one thing always, and it's kind of bad actually. I should learn multitasking. Alright, now we were at the part where he was talking about how women being sexually frustrated is not true. Alright. This also the sexual fucking fetishization of the length of male penises. I won't argue that this has no effect on sexual performance, but the average female vagina only goes about 5 or 6 inches about the average male penis. This is wrong. It's actually about only 3 to 4 inches, not 5 to 6 inches. The main center of their pleasure, actually, it's dependent on where you're born, because the human bodies have kind of adjusted to each other's sizes. So if you're from Southeast Asia, you as a female, your canal is only about 3 to 4 inches. Where if you go more northern in like even African, it's kind of like 5-ish inches, and if you go more northern, like uh really north, Canada, America, Nordic countries, European countries, it's actually like about 5 inches as well, not 6 inches. It's not 6 inches unless you have like a genetic thing, which makes you have 6 inches, but it's not the norm, is what I'm saying. It's kind of like a bell curve distribution, depending on the place you live in. Regardless, where was I? Right. It's about 5 to 6, and about the average male penis. The male center of pleasure requires no length to reach the famed G spot, and the famed G spot is about 3 inches in, a bit curved upwards. So this was mostly rumors, a new way for women to belittle men in their newfound would-be sexual superiority, where they now control the terms of engagement. Engagement, I think he meant. Men became obsessed whether they were good enough or not, and in my opinion, that stress, that constant newfound concern if a guy could please the woman up to these absurd standards, coupled with the fetish slop described above, many adapted minds to seek fetishes in which their participation or performance was not as important to the non existent. From seemingly innocent shit like this being dominated by a woman to gay sex or even cuckold porn. Wait, seemingly innocent shit like simply being dominated by women to gay sex too. Okay, I thought I read it wrong. Of 20 guys interviews who said their main fetish was cross dressing, trapping themselves, one of them taking female hormones, all 20 confirmed the slope in porn seen above, from straight porn to rape to lesbian to transsexual porn and so forth. Because they derive their pleasure from more female sources, which they have been associating with, be it replacing women during sex, taking the submissive role, or even seeing another guy with women, something that could start from even normal heterosexual pornography. This form of getting off, coupled with natural dopamine rush of an act considered taboo in their minds, causes many men to swerve to the side of the curve. But it's just fetishes. I don't act them out on real in real life, but they're still acting on you. Even then, there is no guarantee that it stays that way forever. All four fucking trannies I managed to interview, plus one who had started hormone therapy, said that they didn't identify as female before going very deep into cross dressing, sissy, as they call forced feminization fetish, before making the decision. There is actually such an issue in the tranny community that they often have FAQs on the issues and several sites where they draw the line between fetishism and its real thing, even though I'd argue one is just a harsher form of the other, really. In short, pornography is a slippery slope and causes you to take a dark path, originophilia developing to some degree of whether your new fetish is getting raped by monster girls or being a trap. You should know that this shit is not natural, and it is the fault of porn and our current warped sexual culture. Right. Now he just goes into talking about a little on brief about all the different sexual fetishes, right? A brief anecdotal on several fetishes. In this section, I'll simply go through the several fetishes described to you above and describe the psychological origin. This should explain their prevalence in recent years, perhaps in your life too. One might ask the point of this. The point of it is to terrify you. If I have to scare you into realizing you have a fucking problem, I'll go through the patterns you'll find familiar until you are very much scared. PDSM, subjugation, dominance by women. As I said, most of these comes from a man's recent self-esteem problems or whether or not he can please females. Faced with the issues he thinks he can't fix, your brain adapts by making get off on roles that necessitate less effort or performance and wires itself to get off on humiliation. Cuckold or interracial cuckold bestiality porn. Same shit as above, you might have been interested in why so many white guys are into racial garbage. It's basically because, as much as you try to deny it, lefty bastard, everyone's still fucking racist to some degree, even if, unlike poltards, ignore that. Like us, the white brain still sees black as inferior and more savage because of their origins as slaves. In a way, the rush one gets from interracial porn is the same one from bestiality. It's the rush of seeing something inhumane happen. It's why there's a lot less white guy on black girl porn, since the appeal in there is reverse. But surprisingly, a lot of black guys have a fetish for getting downed by white guys in a reversed form of racial form of this. I will argue that this is actually within in line of what he is arguing for, where you are having something so inhumane happen that that's the only thing that you can get a kick, because you will observe, as much as you will try to deny it, in black communities where black men try to think or do think that white men are inferior to them because of this view that black men have bigger dicks and this and that and they're better sexually, so they start viewing white men lower on the tier, and by subjugating themselves to the white man, they're kind of going down the same line of thought. He doesn't realize this, I don't know why, but I kind of realized this while I was reading that it's not a surprise, it's actually completely within line of what he is arguing for. And he continues, oh, and the BBC crap comes from this fountain too. The same reason bestiality porn uses horses a lot. So porn focuses on pretending they are bigger by cherry picking actors. The reason size is less important in white on white normal porn is because porn is because the main character there is supposed to be a self-insert for the viewer, different from interracial where the appeal is the same as the cuck shit. Now he's kind of arguing that everybody is just white who was reading this, but I understand this guy has a Nazi photo as the title, but continuing on. Furry crab. Let me see. Furry crab, the appeal of different and alien. Basically, it refers to it doesn't matter for shit if you're fat, lonely, or with a micro penis, because they're all freaks. By submitting himself into such condition, the man avoids the issue being described above of being worried about not being good enough, narrowly sidestepping into a whole different shitstorm above, but it's still, frankly, creepy and freaky. Hentai and Jap shit. I'm not going to pretend that Jap doesn't have the same risk. The porn slippery slope is real. The Japs are known for loving fucking their traps. You could argue it's a little less worse since there's a lot more pictures and self inserts, but you're still subjugated to the societal pressure and the slope will still happen. Trapping and cross dressing, forced feminization, the ultimate cuckery. This is the point that the male absolutely gives up on any responsibility as a man and decides to simply become a woman and avoid all the problems above while simply engaging in his autogenophilia openly. This is bad, fuckers, and it needs to stop. Wanting to fuck traps, trannies, and dominating another man. Now, this is an interesting offshoot of the self esteem problem. When a man becomes so worried about not being able to please women, he simply takes the route of projecting a man into that role instead. This is usually seen in males that have mostly avoided pornography, or at least in offshoots of it, that don't focus on self insertion, thus have little autogenophilia themselves. Hypnosis porn and quick PSA. Hypnosis porn isn't fucking real. Hypnosis is by definition auto suggestion. Basically, you believe in it because you want to. Stage hypnosis, several times proven to work by a combination of the audience wanting it to work and peer pressure. Shrink hypnosis only works if you actually want to help yourself. This appeal in pornography is for the viewer to somehow lose the responsibility for engaging in it, a form of taking blame of himself. In a porn thread, he is talking about how hypnosis isn't real. I fucking love 4chan. Pedophilia. I believe the act of being attracted to children is centered around the problem of self esteem and described above. It's why there's such a massive spike in recent years. Basically, when engaging in sex with young children, expectations of size, performance matter nothing, they're all skipped aside. In a way, pedophiles are men without any self esteem who have simply fallen back to abusing children instead, kind of like a high school kid that picks on preschoolers. Rape, as described above, rape is, while closer to a man's natural instinct, of fuck. Also, somewhat based on a desire to sidestep many hurdles of sex and sexual self esteem, and the media imposes it on men today. I disagree. Lesbian porn. Basically, a way for men to remotely engage in autogenophilia. You get your brain constantly rewarded for what it recognizes as female pressure sources. Scat, gore, other disgusting shit. Forcing pleasure in an act of actual penetration is a matter of sidestepping sexual self esteem issues. Unless, of course, there's also submission involved, which is common. Some other shit I can't possibly cover all the fetishes in this planet, but you have to realize that most of. Fuck uh, realize that most of these are in some way imbued in these two main issues: the miswire of the brain's pleasure centers and the current self esteem issues imbued in men by media. So, what can I do? This is kind of where I stop the post, but I'll just read it out because actually, I won't read it out because I want to insert my own thoughts as well. I think this kind of the logical thinking of most of these things are happening because of a self-esteem issue and how man fails to see himself as somebody who is worthy enough to overcome the obstacles is kind of what Nietzsche argues in his idea of the last man. He's so mediocre, he's so full of mediocrity, and he's just given up that he fails and doesn't try to be something better. And I think the solution to this is adopting Nietzsche's ideas. Now, there is no step by step guide to how to become the ideal, how to become the Ubermensch, right? Because if there was, you wouldn't be the best version of yourself. You would be the best version of what someone else envisions would be the best person. You have to create your own values, you have to create your own ideas, and you have to walk that path by yourself. By doing this, what happens is, as the guy explained, you are going to subjugate yourself lower and lower and lower on the self esteem chart until you get to a point where you are so defeated that you can never get up. The only way for society to move forward as a whole is, and this has always been true in history, society has always moved forward due to the efforts of the few. It's not been the efforts of many. It's rarely ever been that. It's always been the efforts of a few pushing in one direction. Newton, Einstein, and I would argue the atom bomb being created was really the efforts of a couple people that really pushed it forward. Enrico Fermi discovering fission, that was just the basis of it all happening. You could argue everything else following was going to happen eventually. The Manhattan Project only accelerated that process, but regardless, that is what I think is happening here. I disagree with the rape sections of this because I don't know where this guy is getting it. I do agree that to some extent, very little, that there might be a rape instinct within men. And I think that isn't natural because that comes out of a sexual frustration of being unable to get the release that you want. That's where it stems from. It's not natural. It comes from the inability to get it. So now you're in a state of, I want it and I'm going to go to whatever lengths I have to get it. And frankly, I think it's worse than murder. I am running out of time. That is all. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.